Alrighty, Hamilton. All right, we're rocking and rolling here. BA Review 1. All right, the birth of Jesus is the split between what two periods? We all should know that that is BCE and CE. Correctamundo. Next, number 2. What was the main reason for Christianity, or that Christianity survived and flourished after 300 CE? And we know that it is the adoption of its official religion of Rome. All right. Constantine protected it with the Edict of Milan, and then Theodosius adopted it. And from there on, Christianity is strong. Um, the diaspora. This is a term that you've probably seen in the vocab in that. And it's this idea that is used to explain how people get dispersed in like forced migration from where they start. And it's mostly applied to the Jews, and they've been through a number of diasporas throughout their history. One throughout being pushed out of the Holy Land. There was a European diaspora, so, or diaspora, depends on how you want to say it, but almost always referred to the Jewish people. Muslims, why did they tolerate Jews and Christians as they were spreading? And we talked a ton about this, and we know that they are all people with similar prophets, similar beliefs in a God. It's just the small differences between them make them actually completely different religions, all right? But there's so much of them that are the same. From what region did the majority of Crusaders originate? Now remember, the Crusades are going to be this push for the Pope and the Europeans in Western Europe to send people to the Middle East to try and retake the Holy Land. And they say that it's a holy war, to kick out the Muslims out of the Middle East. Essentially, though, what it is, it's a request by Byzantium so that they don't get conquered by Muslims, and they want Europe to help them out. So, but essentially, those people that go are all from Western Europe, all right? And what were they promised? They were promised that if they went there, that whatever land they could take, would be theirs and that kind of stuff. You could start farms and that. And so that was really appealing to a lot of peasants in Europe. But the other thing was that if you died killing or trying to kill Muslims, then you would be given eternal salvation. You'd go to heaven. So I don't know if that's necessarily what Jesus would do, but that's what was promised to them. 7. What was a positive result of the Crusades? About the one truly positive thing that comes out of the Crusades was this idea of the exchange of ideas. Remember, Europe is not doing well, but the Muslim empires are doing very well. The trade, wealth, a ton of new ideas, advanced mathematics, and so that's what we get from the Crusades, or at least the Europeans get from the Crusades. The difference between Sunni and Shiite Muslims, remember that is after Muhammad died, the debate over who should be the next caliph or leader of the Muslim faith. Correct. So whether it should have been Abu Bakr, should have been the next caliph, or whether it should have been a direct blood descendant of Muhammad is what splits Sunnis and Shiites. Why did Judaism spread to Europe? Again, because of the diaspora and the forced movement from their homeland in the Middle East pushed them into Europe. And then once they get to Europe, since they're not Christians, the Christians are going to look at a couple of times to push them out of Europe. So again, it wasn't a very good history after they lost Jerusalem and Israel there in the beginning. Next, what is one of the lasting contributions of the early Muslim empires? Advanced mathematics is just one of many, but that's what you're going to see on the test. The idea of glasses, a ton of astronomy, the advanced mathematics, all of these things come from Muslim empires. And that's kind of what's going to get Europe back on the learning path after the Dark Ages, is all of this new technology that they get from the Muslims, they bring back to Europe and learn from. The differences caused by the Great Schism of 1054. Remember, so Christianity is going to split. The emperor in Europe, or in Byzantium, is going to butt heads with the Pope in Rome and fight over the use of icons in Christianity. And so what happens is the Roman Pope says it's okay to use icons. Stained glass windows, crucifixes, pictures in that of Mary and Jesus and that. And the emperor in Byzantium, who wants to be the head of the Christian church there, says no, it's not. He goes around smashing all these icons, breaking all the glasses out of churches, forcing people to give up their icons. And as a result, the Pope excommunicates the Byzantine emperor, and the Byzantine emperor is like, fine, go ahead, we'll start our own Christian church here, and I'll be the head of it. And now all of a sudden, for the first time, you have Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodox Christianity. And essentially, it's just a fight between the Pope and the Byzantine emperor. 12. The main unifying force in Western Europe after the fall of Rome was Christianity. Without Christianity, Rome had nothing to help organize it after the fall of Rome. Next, what you're going to see is that from about the 10th century to the 15th century in Europe, to cleanse Europe, Muslims have come all the way across northern Africa and up into Spain and are pushing through. And there is a movement within Europe to rid it of all non-believers of Christianity. And so, again, one of those things to where, I don't know if Jesus would have done this. What would Jesus do? Jesus probably wouldn't have tortured Muslims and Jews and either forced them to convert or killed them. But that's what happened during the Inquisition. And they're going to have a couple of periods like this. Something that we haven't talked about, but it's on the test, and it's just in India, when Muslims and Hindus come together and they start to mix cultures, a new religion forms there, and it's called Sikhism. So it's just a combination of the two. 15. What followed Islam? What allowed Islam to spread so quickly? And it was simply that it was a faith that gave diverse populations a common goal. People that they conquered all became unified under the religion. Population's a common goal. Classical and post-classical history. Explain the difference in philosophical views between Sparta and Athens. Obviously, we know Athens believed in education. Sparta was military. Next, examples of historical interaction that took place along the Silk Roads. The sale of luxury goods like silk and jewelries and that. And then the exchange and migration of religious beliefs. Rome treated the people, for question 3, they conquered pretty well, allowing them to maintain their day-to-day lives and customs in return for cooperation. And again, most people liked living under Roman rule, because a lot of things were brought to them that they didn't have prior to that. Two main reasons for the fall of Rome and Han China is the corruption within the governments. And then you have another question on the BA that's like, well, what led to the fall of Rome and Alexander the Great's empires? And at that, it was essentially over-expansion. Is that good? We'll come back to it. Some of you missed some. Next, 6. The time period that followed the collapse of the Roman Empire in Western Europe. Middle Ages are sometimes referred to as the Dark Ages. And the Dark Ages refers to a period of time that there is little learning that's taking place. Most items that traveled along the Silk Roads were luxury items. 8, the main negative aspect of the Silk Roads was the idea of the spread of disease. What allowed for the slave trade? Okay, there is a slave trade that's, before we get to the slave trade to where Africans are taken from Africa and brought to the Americas, there's a slave trade that goes across northern Africa and sends Africans to the Middle East into slavery. All right? And that's why I kind of capitalize that. And that is increased trade routes across North Africa. As Islam spreads across Africa, you'll see that, they now start to use that slave trade. And also those trade routes help to spread Islam across North Africa. The term that the Byzantine Emperor Justinian tried to create, it's called a theocracy, which is government and religion combined. What was the importance of Constantinople to the development of Eastern Europe? Is that it sat at the center of trade routes leading to and from Eastern Europe. Divine right is when a king or queen kind of says that they have the blessings from God to rule. 2 innovations that led to higher productivity as far as agricultural output was the moldboard plow and the padded horse collar. Aw, padded horse collar. Horses get a little comfort there. No? Okay. 16, people responsible for spreading ideas across the Atlantic during the Age of Exploration are explorers. The Silk Roads, the test doesn't use the Indian Ocean basin. It just uses Silk Roads, but we know that India was big with the Silk Roads in the Indian Ocean, everything that traveled by water. And 18, what areas did the Ottoman Empire conquer? Southeastern Europe, all the way to India, but its most diverse population was in Southeastern Europe. And then finally, the empires most threatened Southeastern Europe from 1100 to 1500 was the Islamic empires, mostly the Ottoman. All right. So with that being said, bid you all adieu. Peace in the Middle East. Adios.